A massive screen in the Galactic Council chamber flickered to life. Every alien representative in the room turned to watch as a face appeared on the display. It was not a pleasant face to look at. The creature had dark red skin covered in sharp ridges. Its eyes glowed like burning coals. 2 long fangs curved down from its upper jaw. This was Supreme Commander Vextil of the Zerati hegemony. "Attention all species of this pathetic galaxy," the creature spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "I am here to deliver a message that will change everything. The great Zerati Empire has decided to expand our territory. We have chosen our next target." Ambassador Sarah Chun sat in her chair among the other representatives. She was a small human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Around her, the other aliens shifted nervously in their seats. The crystalline Vorthic made clicking sounds with their bodies. The tall Altarians whispered to each other with worry in their voices. "Our target," Vextil continued, "is the pathetic species called humans. These weak creatures have spread like a disease across several star systems. They think they belong among the stars. They are wrong." Sarah felt her heart start to beat faster, but she kept her face calm. She had been expecting this day for a long time. The Zerati had been growing more aggressive for years. They had destroyed 3 smaller civilizations already. Everyone knew they would eventually turn their attention to someone bigger. "The humans are nothing but primitive apes who got lucky," Vextil said with a cruel laugh. "They stumbled into space travel by accident. They have no right to claim worlds that could belong to superior species like the Zerati." The commander leaned forward on the screen. His fangs gleamed in the light. "Here are our terms. The human government has exactly 72 standard hours to surrender completely. They must give up all their colonies. They must give up all their ships. They must return to their home planet Earth and stay there forever." Murmurs of shock filled the chamber. Even for the Zerati, this was extremely aggressive. The Altarian ambassador stood up on his long legs. "Commander Vextil, surely you cannot be serious. The humans have done nothing to threaten your empire." "Silence!" Vextil roared. "I did not ask for your opinion, Tree Dweller. The humans exist where they should not exist. That is threat enough." The Vorthic representative, a being made of living crystal, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "What if the humans refuse your demands?" Vextil smiled, showing all of his sharp teeth. "Then we will demonstrate what happens to species who defy the Zerati Empire. We will turn every human world into glass. We will hunt down every human ship in space. We will make sure that nothing remains of their pathetic civilization except stories told by other species as warnings." Sarah felt cold anger building in her chest, but she forced herself to remain still. Around the chamber, other representatives looked at her with pity. Some looked away entirely, as if they were already attending a funeral. "Our fleet is already moving toward human space," Vextil announced. 2,000 ships of war, each one capable of destroying a planet. The largest military force ever assembled in this galaxy. Even if every other species joined together too. Help the humans, they could not stop us. The Altarian ambassador tried again. Perhaps there could be negotiations. The humans might be willing to give up some of their colonies in exchange for peace. "There will be no negotiations," Vextil snarled. "The humans will surrender completely, or they will die completely. Those are the only choices." Sarah finally stood up. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to her. She was so much smaller than most of the other representatives. Next to the towering Altarians or the massive rock-like Threnody, she looked tiny and fragile. "Commander Vextil," she said in a clear, steady voice, "I have heard your message. I will pass it along to my government immediately." "Good," Vextil growled. "Tell them that the Zerati Empire has never been defeated in war. Tell them that resistance is useless. Tell them that mercy is only possible through complete surrender. Sarah nodded slowly. I will tell them exactly what you said. Is there anything else you want me to communicate? Yes, Bextel said, his eyes burning brighter. Tell them that if they try to run, we will chase them to the edge of the galaxy. Tell them that if they try to hide, we will find them. Tell them that the Zerati Empire remembers every insult, and we always collect what is owed to us. I understand, Sarah replied. Will that be all? That is all. You have 72 hours. Do not waste them. The screen went blacked out. The chamber erupted in noise as representatives began talking all at once. The Altarians were whispering frantically among themselves. The Vorthik were making their worried chiming sounds. Even the normally silent Threnody were rumbling with concern. The Altarian ambassador approached Sarah. His people had been allies with humans for 20 years. Ambassador Chun, my government wants you to know that we will do everything we can to help. Perhaps we can arrange for refugee ships to evacuate your colonies. That is very kind, Sarah said politely. But I do not think that will be necessary. The crystal being from the Vorthik delegation floated over to her. Sarah, you must be realistic. The Zerati fleet is enormous. Your people have perhaps 300 ships total. Many of those are just cargo vessels or exploration ships. You cannot fight them. The Vorthik are correct, added the massive Threnody representative, his voice like an avalanche. The humans should consider negotiation. Perhaps the Zerati will accept partial surrender. Sarah smiled at all of them. It was a strange smile, calm and confident, in a way that made no sense given the situation. Thank you all for your concern. Your friendship means a great deal to us. But I think you may be surprised by how this situation develops. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small communication device. The other representatives watched. As she activated it, a green light began blinking, indicating that the signal was being transmitted across space to human territory. Admiral Morrison, Sarah said into the device. This is Ambassador Chun. The Zerati have made their position very clear. They have given us 72 hours to surrender completely or face total destruction. She paused for a moment, listening to the response that only she could hear through her earpiece. Then she nodded. Understood, Admiral. Please implement Protocol 7 immediately. The watching aliens looked confused. They had never heard of Protocol 7. In fact, they had never heard humans mention any numbered protocols at all. Sarah put the communication device away and turned back to the other representatives. Her smile had not changed at all. If you will excuse me, she said politely, I need to prepare some reports for my government. I suspect the next few days will be quite interesting. As she walked toward the exit, the Altarian ambassador called after her. Sarah, what is Protocol 7? She stopped at the doorway and looked back at him. For just a moment, something cold and dangerous flickered in her kind eyes. You will find out soon enough, she said quietly. Then she was gone. The remaining representatives stood in confused silence. None of them understood why the human ambassador seemed so calm. None of them could imagine what Protocol 7 might be. All they knew was that Sarah Chun had not looked like someone whose people were about to be destroyed. She had looked like someone whose people were about to do the destroying. Outside the council chamber, Sarah walked quickly down the corridor toward her office. Her calm expression never changed, but inside she felt a mixture of sadness and grim satisfaction. For 50 years, humanity had hoped this day would never come. They had tried diplomacy. They had tried trade. They had tried friendship with dozens of alien species, but they had also prepared for war. Now, the Zerati had forced their hand. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what humans were really capable when pushed too far. Sarah only hoped that other species would learn the right lesson from what was about to happen. The age of underestimating humanity was about to end forever. Admiral Jessica Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship Indomitable and watched as her communications officer worked frantically at his station. Around the massive command center, dozens of other officers were busy sending messages to every corner of human space. The Protocol 7 activation signal was spreading like wildfire across the galaxy. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we have confirmation from all sectors. The signal has been received and acknowledged." "Excellent," Morrison replied. She was a tall woman with short black hair and steel-gray eyes. She had been in the human space navy for 30 years, but nobody outside of a very small group knew her real job. To the rest of the galaxy, she was just another ship captain. In reality, she commanded the largest secret military force in known space. "Begin Phase 1 immediately," she ordered. Across human territory, the most carefully planned deception in galactic history began to unfold. On every human colony world, emergency broadcasts filled the airwaves. All civilian ships must evacuate. Immediately, the messages said, military vessels are pulling back to defend the inner systems. This is not a drill. To any aliens watching, it looked exactly like panic. Thousands of cargo ships, passenger vessels, and small private craft began fleeing from the border worlds toward the safety of Earth and the other core human systems. The withdrawal appeared chaotic and desperate, exactly what anyone would expect from a weak species facing impossible odds. But appearances could be very deceiving. Captain Zhang Wei piloted his cargo ship Prosperity away from the mining colony of New Shanghai. To the Zarati scouts watching from the edge of the system, he looked like just another frightened civilian running for his life. They had no way of knowing that his cargo ship was actually packed with the most advanced weapons systems in the galaxy, or that Captain Zhang was a decorated combat veteran who had been waiting 20 years for this moment. "Prosperity to control," Zhang said quietly into his communicator. "Package is delivered and armed, moving to secondary position. Copy that, Prosperity? Well done." The package Zhang had left behind looked like abandoned mining equipment. In reality, it was a quantum torpedo launcher capable of destroying anything within 1,000,000 kilometers. Zarati scouts would fly right past it without ever knowing it was there. Similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. What looked like a panicked retreat was actually the deployment of the most sophisticated defense network ever created. Every piece of abandoned equipment, every damaged satellite, every broken-down mining station was a carefully disguised weapon system. Meanwhile, in the asteroid fields of the Vega system, something much larger was happening. Commander Lisa Park watched as the rocky surface of a particularly large asteroid began to split apart. What emerged was not mining equipment or a research station. It was a shipyard. "Phoenix Base to all construction teams," Park announced. "Camouflage deactivation is complete. Begin final assembly immediately." The asteroid had been hollow for 40 years. Inside its carefully concealed interior, human engineers had been building warships that no alien species had ever seen before. The construction bays that emerged from the rock were each large enough to hold a small city, and every single one contained a fully assembled battleship. Park smiled as she watched the massive vessels begin to move out of their hiding places. Each ship was 3 times the size of anything the galaxy thought humans could build. Their armor was made from materials that did not officially exist. Their weapons were based on technology that humans were not supposed to understand. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Park said to her second-in-command as the first battleship cleared the asteroid. "All 12 ships are magnificent," the younger officer replied. "How long until the other bases finish their launches?" 6 hours. By then, we'll have over 10,000 ships in space. The younger officer whistled in amazement. The Zarati think we have 300 ships total. Let them keep thinking that for a few more hours, Park said with a grin. In another part of space, something even more impressive was happening. Captain Sarah Rodriguez had been flying the same patrol route for 15 years. Every alien scout who had ever observed her knew her ship, the Wanderer. It was a small exploration vessel, obviously unarmed, clearly no threat to anyone. Today, Rodriguez activated a series of controls that she had never used before. The outer hull of the Wanderer began to change. Panels slid away to reveal hidden weapon systems. The engines that had seemed barely powerful enough for exploration suddenly showed their true capability as military-grade drives. In less than 10 minutes, the harmless exploration ship had transformed into a deadly stealth fighter. Wanderer to Fleet Command, Rodriguez reported. Transformation complete. All systems showing green. Copy that, Wanderer. You are cleared to begin hunting operations. Rodriguez smiled coldly. She had spent 15 years watching Zarati scouts spy on human shipping routes. Now it was time to return the favor. Back on the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Morrison reviewed the reports flowing in from across human space. Every secret base was powering up. Every hidden shipyard was launching its vessels. Every disguised warship was revealing its true nature. Admiral, her tactical officer announced, we now have confirmed deployment of 8,412 ships. Estimate full deployment in 4 hours. Morrison nodded. What about the Zarati fleet? Still advancing toward our territory. They seem to be interpreting our civilian evacuation as a sign of weakness. Intelligence suggests they're moving faster than originally planned. Perfect. The more confident they feel, the bigger the surprise will be. Morrison walked to the main display screen, which showed a tactical map of the entire region. Red dots marked the positions of Zarati ships. Blue dots showed human vessels. A few hours ago, the red dots had vastly outnumbered the blue ones. Now, the situation was rapidly changing. Admiral, the communications officer, called out. We're receiving a message from Ambassador Chun on the Galactic Council station. Put her through. Sarah Chun's face appeared on the screen. She was sitting in her private office, looking as calm as ever. Admiral Morrison, I trust Protocol 7 is proceeding smoothly? Better than we could have hoped, Ambassador. The Zarati are taking the bait completely. They think we're running scared. Excellent. The other galactic species are watching this situation very carefully. Several governments have already sent me private messages offering refugee assistance. Morrison almost laughed. Refugee assistance. If they only knew. How long until you're ready for Phase 2? Morrison checked her displays again. 6 hours. For full deployment. After that, we can engage at any time. Good. The Zarati fleet should reach the Kepler system in about 8 hours. That will be perfect timing. Ambassador, are you certain the other galactic governments don't suspect anything? Chun smiled. Admiral, we've been playing the role of peaceful, slightly primitive humans for 50 years. We've been so convincing that even our closest allies believe it. The Altarians actually offered to help us negotiate a partial surrender with the Zarati. And what did you tell them? I thanked them for their concern and told them it wouldn't be necessary. Morrison grinned. I bet that confused them. They have no idea what to make of our confidence. None of them do. As far as the galaxy knows, we're about to be wiped out by a vastly superior force. Well, they're half right about the wiping out part. Indeed. Is there anything else you need from the diplomatic side? Morrison thought for a moment. Just make sure the council station is recording everything that happens. I want every species in the galaxy to see exactly what we're capable of. Already arranged. Every moment of the coming battle will be broadcast live to the entire Galactic Council. Perfect. Morrison out. As the connection ended, Morrison turned back to her tactical displays. The transformation of human space was almost complete. Hidden bases that had been secret for decades were now fully operational. Disguised ships that had spent years pretending to be harmless were now revealed as sophisticated weapons of war. "Admiral," her intelligence officer reported, "we're detecting increased Zerati communications. They seem very pleased with themselves." "Let me guess. They think we're in full retreat." "Exactly. Their commander is boasting about how quickly the humans are running away." Morrison laughed. "Supreme Commander Vexthal is in for quite a shock." "Admiral, do you really think this will work?" "I mean, we've never tested these systems in actual combat." Morrison's expression became serious. "Commander, humanity has spent 50 years studying every species in this galaxy. We know their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. We've built our ships specifically to counter their technology. We have trained our crews for every possible scenario." She paused and looked around the bridge at her officers. "More importantly, we've had 50 years to think about this moment. 50 years to plan. 50 years to prepare. The Zerati are walking into a trap that we've been setting since before most of you were born. And if we're wrong?" Morrison's eyes went cold. "Then humanity dies fighting instead of surrendering. But we're not wrong, Commander. In a few hours, you'll see why." Across the galaxy, the final preparations continued. Human ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels were powering up their real engines. Supreme Commander Vexthal stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, and felt very pleased with himself. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see hundreds of Zerati warships flying in perfect formation toward human space. His fleet was magnificent. 2,000 of the most powerful ships ever built, crewed by the finest warriors in the galaxy. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we are now 6 hours from the human border. Our scouts report continued evacuation activity. The humans appear to be in complete panic." Vexthal laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Of course they are panicking. They finally understand what it means to face the Zerati. Empire, have our advanced scouts detected any military resistance?" "None, sir. We have observed several small patrol ships fleeing toward their core systems. They did not even attempt to engage our scouts." "Pathetic," Vexthal snarled. "These humans are even weaker than I expected. Perhaps we will not even need our full fleet to crush them." The Supreme Commander walked to his command chair, satisfied that everything was proceeding perfectly. The humans were behaving exactly as he had predicted. They were weak, cowardly creatures who had never faced a real military force. In a few hours, their pathetic resistance would be over. But 50 light years away, a very different conversation was taking place. "Contact acquired," reported Lieutenant Maria Santos from her position aboard the stealth ship Shadow. "Zerati. Scout formation, 12 ships, proceeding on course 27 Mark IV. Her captain, Commander Eric Johnson, smiled grimly. "Perfect. Are the other hunters in position?" "Affirmative, sir. Phantom and Ghost report ready to engage." "Excellent. Let's see how good these Zerati really are." The Shadow was invisible to every known detection system in the galaxy. Its hull was covered with materials that absorbed sensor beams instead of reflecting them. Its engines produced no detectable emissions. Even its weapons were designed to fire without creating any energy signature that could be traced back to the ship for 15 years. Commander Johnson had been flying patrol routes near Zerati space, watching their ships, learning their patterns. The aliens had never suspected he was there. Today, that knowledge would finally be put to use. "Weapons ready, sir," his gunner reported. "Fire." A beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the Shadow, striking the lead Zerati scout ship. The alien vessel simply vanished, turned into expanding gas and debris in less than a second. Before the other scouts could even react, similar beams erupted from empty space around them. The Phantom and Ghost had fired as well. In 30 seconds, the entire Zerati scout formation was destroyed. All targets eliminated, Santos reported. No survivors detected. Good. Set course for intercept point Delta. Let's find another patrol. Similar scenes were playing out across a dozen star systems. Human stealth ships that the galaxy didn't know existed were systematically hunting down Zerati scouts. The alien advance forces were disappearing one by one, with no idea what was happening to them. Back on the Destroyer of Worlds, Vexthal was beginning to feel the first hints of concern. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we've lost contact with Scout Group 7. "What do you mean, lost contact?" "Their signals simply stopped, sir. No distress calls, no battle reports. They were transmitting normally one moment, then nothing." Vexthal frowned. "Could be equipment failure." "What about the other scout groups?" "Groups 3, 9, and 12 have also gone silent, sir." Now Vexthal was definitely concerned. "Send a full squadron to investigate." "I want to know what happened to those scouts." "Yes, sir." Squadron leader reports they will reach the last known position of Group 7 in 2 hours. The Supreme Commander paced back and forth across his bridge. 4 scout groups didn't just disappear for no reason. Something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. Meanwhile, in the hidden command center buried deep beneath Earth's surface, Admiral Morrison was watching the battle develop in real time. Holographic displays showed the positions of every ship in space, both human and Zerati. The picture was very encouraging. "Admiral," her intelligence chief reported, "Operation Silent Hunter is proceeding perfectly. We've eliminated 37 Zerati scout ships so far. They still have no idea what's happening to them." "Excellent. What about our main fleet deployment?" "Complete, Admiral. All ships are in position and ready for battle. Total count, 9,843 vessels." Morrison smiled. The galaxy thought humanity had 300 ships. They actually had almost 10,000. It was the greatest military deception in known history. "And the special weapons?" "All quantum torpedo platforms are online and armed. Temporal disruptor cannons are charged and ready. The gravitational wave generators are standing by." Morrison nodded. Those weapons represented 50 years of research into technologies that most alien species considered impossible. The Zerati were about to discover that humans were very good at making the impossible work. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Chun requests a priority conference." "Put her through." Sarah Chun's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Morrison could see the council chamber filled with alien representatives. "Admiral Morrison," Chun said formally, "I am here with representatives from 15 galactic governments. They have asked me to relay their concerns about the coming battle." "What concerns?" The Altarian ambassador stepped into view. "Admiral Morrison, our intelligence suggests that the Zerati fleet is extremely large and well armed. We are worried that humanity may not understand the true scope of the threat you face." Morrison had to work hard not to laugh. "Ambassador, we appreciate your concern, but I think you may be surprised by how this situation develops." "Admiral," the crystalline Vorthic representative chimed in, "our calculations indicate that the Zerati possess at least a 6-to-1 numerical advantage. Even if your ships are superior in technology, such odds are impossible to overcome." "Are they?" Morrison asked quietly. Something in her tone made all the alien representatives pause. They had expected to speak with a desperate human commander, facing impossible odds. Instead, they were looking at someone who seemed completely confident. Admiral, Ambassador Chun said carefully, the council members would like to know if humanity has any ... surprises. That might change the tactical situation, Morrison smiled. Ambassador, I think it would be more accurate to say that the tactical situation is not quite what it appears to be. What do you mean? You'll find out in about 4 hours. Morrison. Out. As the connection ended, the alien representatives in the council chamber began talking excitedly among themselves. Something was wrong with this picture. The humans were acting far too confident for people who were about to be destroyed. Back in space, the Zarati Investigation Squadron had reached the last known position of Scout Group 7. Squadron Leader Crexton studied his sensors carefully, but there was nothing to see except empty space. This makes no sense, he muttered. 12 ships don't just vanish. Sir, his sensor operator reported, I'm detecting some debris. Very small pieces, scattered over a wide area. Can you identify what kind of debris? It appears to be Zarati hull metal, sir, but the pieces are so small. It's like the ships were completely vaporized. Crexton felt cold fear crawling up his spine. What kind of weapon could completely destroy a Zarati warship? Their shields were supposed to be able to stop anything short of a planet-killer missile. Sir, another officer called out, I'm detecting an energy signature. Something's out there. Where? I can't get an exact fix. It's like the readings are coming from empty space. Crexton stared at his displays. Empty space that contained an energy signature. Ships that had been completely vaporized. This was starting to feel very much like a trap. All ships, prepare for combat. Raise shields and arm weapons. But it was already too late. The humans had been watching and waiting. As soon as the Zarati squadron powered up their weapons, they revealed their exact positions to the stealth ships that surrounded them. Beams of quantum energy erupted from seemingly empty space. One by one, the Zarati vessels were destroyed with surgical precision. Squadron leader Crexton had just enough time to send a single terrified message before his ship was vaporized. Command, this is Investigation Squadron Alpha. We are under attack by invisible enemies. They're destroying us with unknown weapons. Request immediate backup. Request. The transmission cut off abruptly. On the Destroyer of Worlds, Supreme Commander Veek Still listened to the message with growing horror. Invisible enemies. Unknown weapons. Ships being vaporized without a trace. How many scout groups have? We lost now? He demanded. 14, sir. Over 60 ships total. And we still don't know what's killing them? No, sir. Whatever these weapons are, they're beyond our current technology to detect or counter. Vexthal slammed his fist on his command chair. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to be weak and helpless. They were not supposed to have invisible ships and impossible weapons. Send a message to the fleet. All ships are to proceed with maximum caution. Full shields, full weapons. And I want a complete sensor sweep of the space ahead of us. Yes, sir. The Zarati fleet entered the Kepler 442 system at exactly 1422, Galactic Standard Time. Supreme Commander Vextil had spent the last 6 hours growing more nervous as scout group after scout group disappeared into empty space. But now, seeing the massive formation of his ships spreading across the star system, he felt his confidence returning. Fleet status report, he ordered. All ships present and accounted for, sir. 1,943 vessels in perfect formation. All weapons charged, all shields at maximum power. Vexthal nodded. Whatever had happened to his scouts, it didn't matter now. No force in the galaxy could stand against this much firepower. The humans would learn what happened to species who dared to defy the Zarati Empire. Sir, his sensor operator called out, I'm detecting human ships ahead. How many? Double quotes approximately ... 300, sir. They appear to be in defensive formation around the fourth planet. Vexthul laughed. 300 ships against almost 2,000. The humans really were as pathetic as he had thought. Signal the fleet. Begin the attack. But 50 light years away, Admiral Morrison was watching the same tactical display with very different thoughts. Her command center was buried deep beneath the Earth's surface, protected by layers of rock and energy shields. Around her, dozens of officers monitored displays showing every ship in the battle zone. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the Zarati fleet has entered the kill zone. All stealth ships are in position. All hidden weapons platforms are armed and ready. Morrison smiled coldly. The Zarati thought they were facing 300 human ships. In reality, they were surrounded by almost 10,000 vessels, most of them completely invisible to Zarati sensors. Begin the engagement, she ordered. What happened next would be remembered as the 8-minute war at 14 hours 22 minutes and 15 seconds. The first Zarati ships opened fire on what they thought was a small human defense fleet. Their weapons lit up space with brilliant flashes of energy at 14 hours 22 minutes and 16 seconds. The humans fired back. The difference was immediately obvious. The Zarati weapons were powerful, but they were based on technology that was 50 years old. The human weapons were something entirely new. Quantum torpedoes materialized inside Zarati ships, bypassing their shields completely. The alien vessels simply came apart from the inside, their hulls cracking open like broken eggs. Entire squadrons disappeared in seconds. What is happening? Vexthul screamed as explosions erupted throughout his fleet. Where are those weapons coming from? Unknown, sir. Our sensors show empty space, but something is firing at us from all directions. The truth was that humanity's stealth technology was far more advanced than anyone realized. While the Zarati could see the 300 human ships in front of them, they couldn't detect the thousands of cloaked vessels that surrounded them on all sides. Captain Rodriguez, flying her transformed exploration ship Wanderer, targeted a Zarati cruiser and fired. Her quantum cannon punched through the alien ship's armor like it was made of paper. The cruiser broke in half and exploded. Target destroyed, she reported, moving to next engagement zone. All around the battle area, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships that had pretended to be harmless for decades were revealing their true nature. The galaxy's most advanced weapon systems were being used in combat for the first time, but the real shock came when the hidden battle stations revealed themselves. Admiral, Morrison's weapons officer, announced, all gravitational. Platforms are ready to fire. Do it. Across the Kepler system, objects that had looked like asteroids suddenly powered up. They weren't asteroids at all. They were massive weapons platforms that could manipulate gravity itself. Gravitational waves rippled through space, crushing Zarati ships like tin cans. Entire formations were pulled apart by forces that no armor could resist. Some alien vessels were compressed into tiny balls of superdense matter. Others were stretched so thin that they simply came apart at the molecular level. Supreme Commander Vexthul watched in horror as his magnificent fleet was systematically destroyed around him. Ships that had never known defeat were being eliminated with ridiculous ease. Weapons that he didn't understand were tearing through formations that should have been unstoppable. Sir, his communications officer shouted over the noise of exploding ships. We're receiving surrender demands from the human fleet. Surrender demands? From them? Yes, sir. They're offering to accept our unconditional surrender if we power down our weapons immediately. Vexthul couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans were demanding his surrender? After everything he had said about wiping them out? Never. He roared, The Zerati Empire does not surrender. All ships continue the attack. But there wasn't much fleet left to continue anything. In the space of 4 minutes, over half of his ships had been destroyed. The survivors were scattered and confused, trying to fight enemies they couldn't even see. Captain Zhang Wei, still flying his disguised cargo ship Prosperity, activated the quantum torpedo launcher he had hidden on New Shanghai. The massive weapon fired a salvo of 12 torpedoes directly into the center of the Zerati formation. Each torpedo created a small artificial black hole when it exploded. The gravitational effects ripped apart everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. 50 Zerati ships vanished in an instant, sucked into tiny points of collapsed spacetime. Direct hit, Zhang reported calmly, reloading for second salvo. By 1426, the battle was essentially over. The Zerati fleet had been reduced to scattered groups of survivors trying desperately to escape. But the humans weren't letting anyone leave. All stealth squadrons, Admiral Morrison commanded, begin cleanup operations. I want every Zerati ship eliminated. The hunt that followed was methodical and brutal. Human stealth ships appeared behind fleeing Zerati vessels and destroyed them with single shots. There was no escape from weapons that could track targets through hyperspace and fire through dimensional barriers. Supreme Commander Vexthil found himself alone on his flagship, watching as the last of his arch-ships were picked off by invisible enemies. His communications were filled with the final transmissions of dying Zerati crews. Command, this is Destroyer Squadron 12. We are under attack by unknown forces. Our weapons cannot help us. Something is cutting through our hull. Our shields are useless. They're everywhere. We can't see them, but they're everywhere. One by one, the voices went silent. At 1429, Vexthil's flagship was the only Zerati ship left in the system. The Supreme Commander sat in his command chair, staring at displays that showed nothing but empty space where his fleet had been. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, we're being targeted by multiple human vessels. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Vexthil laughed bitterly. After all his threats and boasting, it had come to this. His entire fleet had been destroyed in 8 minutes by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive and weak. Sir, what are your orders? Vexthil looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders that would probably get them all killed. Open a channel to the human fleet, he said finally. Yes, sir. A face appeared on his main screen. Admiral Morrison herself, calling from her command center. On Earth, she looked exactly like what she was. A military commander who had just won the most decisive victory in galactic history. Supreme Commander Vexthil, she said calmly, you have exactly 30 seconds to power down all weapons and surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, your ship will be destroyed. Vexthil stared at her. How? He asked. How did you hide such a fleet? Our intelligence said you had only 300 ships. Morrison smiled. Your intelligence was very good, Commander. We did have 300 ships in 2195. We've been building in secret for 50 years. Impossible. We would have detected construction on this scale. You detected exactly what we wanted you to detect. Your time is up, Commander. Surrender or die. Vexthil closed his eyes. The great Zerati Empire, conqueror of 12 star systems, had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as harmless primitives. I surrender, he said quietly. At 1430 Galactic Standard Time, exactly 8 minutes after the battle began, the last Zerati ship powered down its weapons. The most powerful military fleet in the galaxy had been completely destroyed without a single human casualty. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched the live broadcast in stunned silence. The humans hadn't. Just one. They had won so easily that it looked like a training exercise rather than a real battle. Ambassador Chun stood up slowly. "As you can see," she said to the shocked aliens around her, "humanity's military capabilities may have been somewhat underestimated." The Altarian ambassador found his voice first. "Sarah ... how many ships do you really have?" Chun smiled. "Enough." She didn't tell them about the hundreds of additional fleets that were still hidden throughout human space. She didn't mention the planet-killing weapons that had never been deployed. She didn't explain that what they had just witnessed was only a small demonstration of humanity's true power. The galaxy had just learned that Earth's children were not as helpless as they appeared. The question now was what the other species would do with that knowledge. The age of underestimating humanity was over forever. 3 days after the 8-minute war, the Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than it had ever been. Representatives from every known species had come to witness what many were calling the most important session in galactic history. Balance of power had shifted completely, and everyone wanted to understand what it meant for the future. Ambassador Sarah Chun walked to the center of the chamber with calm confidence. Around her, dozens of alien eyes watched her every move. These were the same beings who had looked at her with pity just a few days ago. Now they looked at her with something very different, a mixture of respect, fear, and curiosity. "Distinguished representatives," Chun began, "I have been asked to address several questions about recent events. I am happy to provide answers within reason." The Altarian ambassador was the first to speak. His tall, graceful people had been humanity's closest allies for 20 years, but even he seemed shaken by what he had witnessed. "Ambassador Chun, my government needs to understand how humanity was able to hide such massive military capabilities for so long. Our intelligence services had no idea you possessed anything close to what we saw 3 days ago." Chun nodded. "That was the entire point, Ambassador. We wanted no one to know our true capabilities until we were forced to reveal them. But why?" The crystalline Vorthik representative chimed. "Why hide such strength? With that kind of fleet, humanity could have dominated the galaxy decades ago." "Because we didn't want to dominate the galaxy," Chun replied simply. "We wanted to live in peace with our neighbors. We hoped that by appearing weak and harmless, we could avoid conflicts like the one the Zarati forced upon us." The massive Threnody representative rumbled like a small earthquake. "You deliberately appeared weaker than you were? This seems ... unusual." Chun smiled. "Perhaps it seems unusual to species that believe strength should always be displayed openly. But humans have learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes from being underestimated by your enemies." A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It belonged to Ambassador Kethvar of the Hegemony Coalition, a group of aggressive species that had been expanding their territory for years. "Ambassador Chun, the Coalition demands to know the full extent of human military capabilities. What we witnessed 3 days ago suggests that humanity may pose a threat to galactic stability." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Chun turned to face Kethvar directly, and her expression was no longer friendly. "Ambassador Kethvar, humanity poses no threat to any species that does not first threaten us. However, any species that does threaten human colonies or human citizens will discover exactly what the Zarati discovered. Are you threatening the Coalition? I am stating a fact. Humanity has spent 50 years preparing to defend itself against aggressive neighbors. We hoped we would never need to use those preparations. The Zarati proved us wrong." Kethvar's 4 eyes blazed with anger. "The Coalition has legitimate territorial claims that may conflict with human expansion. Are you saying humanity will use military force to settle such disputes?" Chun's voice became very quiet and very cold. "I am saying that humanity will respond to threats with whatever force is necessary to protect our people. If the coalition wishes to pursue territorial disputes through peaceful negotiation, we are happy to talk. If the coalition prefers the Zarati approach, ... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The Altarian ambassador quickly stepped in before the situation could escalate further. Perhaps we should focus on more constructive questions. Ambassador Chun, what happens to the Zarati Empire now? Chun's expression softened slightly. The Zarati homeworlds have formally surrendered. Their government has agreed to pay reparations for the unprovoked attack on human territory. More importantly, they have agreed to fundamental changes in their society. What kind of changes? The Zarati military will be reduced to defensive forces only. Their government will be restructured to include representatives from the species they previously conquered. And they will begin the process of granting independence to their subject worlds. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Several representatives had expected the humans to simply destroy the Zarati Empire entirely. You are not demanding their complete submission? The Vorthik asked. We are not conquerors, Shun replied firmly. We defeated the Zarati to defend ourselves, not to enslave them. We believe that reformed enemies can become better neighbors than destroyed enemies. Supreme Commander Vexthul, who had been brought to the council station as a prisoner, spoke for the first time. The proud Zarati warrior looked broken and exhausted. The human fleet could have destroyed every Zarati world, he said quietly. Instead, they offer us a chance to rebuild as a peaceful civilization. This is not what the Zarati Empire would have done in their place. Chun looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. Commander, your people made a mistake. They confused peaceful intentions with weakness. But mistakes can be corrected if the will exists to do so. And if the Zarati refuse these terms? Chun's expression became stone-cold serious. Then the Zarati Empire will cease to exist. The simple statement sent chills through the chamber. Everyone present understood that humanity had demonstrated the power to make good on such a threat. The session continued for several more hours as representatives asked questions about everything from human technology to human intentions. Chun answered most of them honestly, but she was careful not to reveal too much about humanity's true capabilities. She didn't mention that the fleet the galaxy had witnessed was only one of 12 such formations. She didn't explain that humans had developed weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. She didn't reveal that human intelligence services had been monitoring every major government in the galaxy for decades. Some secrets were still worth keeping as the session finally ended. Chun found herself approached by the Altarian ambassador. His expression was troubled. Sarah, I have to ask, are we still allies? After everything that has happened? Chun smiled genuinely for the first time all day. Of course we are, Ambassador. Nothing has changed in humanity's desire for friendship with peaceful species. We simply revealed that we are capable of defending ourselves and our friends if necessary. But you hid so much from us. For so many years, we hid our military capabilities. We never hid our values or our intentions. The humans who befriended the Altarians 20 years ago are the same humans who defeated the Zarati 3 days ago. We simply showed different sides of our nature when the situation required it. The Altarian considered this for a long moment. And what happens now? How does the galaxy adjust to this new reality? Chun looked out through the chamber's massive viewing windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human fleets were patrolling space that had been free of major conflicts for 3 days. Other species were reconsidering their expansion plans. The aggressive powers that had been building up their militaries were suddenly wondering if their weapons would be effective against human technology. Now, Chun said quietly, we see if the galaxy has learned the right lesson from what happened to the Zarati. And what lesson is that? That humanity prefers peace, but we are very, very good at war. 1 month later, the changes were already visible throughout the galaxy. The Hegemony Coalition had quietly abandoned their planned invasion of 3 neutral systems. The Mordic pirates had suddenly become much less aggressive in their raids on shipping lanes. Several minor conflicts that had been brewing for years were suddenly being resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Ambassador Chun sat in her office on the council station, reading reports from across human space. The news was encouraging. For the first time in decades, galactic civilization seemed to be moving toward peace rather than conflict. A communication signal chimed, indicating an incoming message. Chun activated the display to see Admiral Morrison's face. "Admiral, good to see you. How are the fleet exercises going?" "Very well, Ambassador. The new recruits are adapting quickly to our advanced systems. More importantly, we've detected significant reductions in military buildups across the galaxy. It seems that our demonstration has had the desired effect." "Excellent. Any signs of new threats developing?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Nothing we can't handle. Several species have attempted to probe our defensive networks, but they haven't found anything. As far as the galaxy knows, the fleet they witnessed represents our full capabilities." "Good. How many governments have requested diplomatic meetings this week?" 17. "Everyone wants to improve their relationship with humanity all of a sudden." Chun laughed. "Fear has a way of encouraging diplomacy. But I think some of these requests are genuine. The Vorthik, for instance, seem genuinely interested in cultural exchange programs. And the others? The others are trying to figure out if they can afford to be our enemies." Morrison nodded. "Well, they've seen what happens to species that threaten us. Hopefully, that will be enough to keep the peace." "Admiral, do you think we did the right thing, revealing our capabilities so dramatically?" Morrison was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "Ambassador, for 50 years, we tried to maintain peace through diplomacy and goodwill. It worked with some species, but others saw our peaceful nature.